All right, so you're ready for a deep dive, huh?
We'll do it.
Awesome. Well, this one is all about the JFK assassination.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we've got a really cool set of sources for all. We're going to be looking at excerpts from Fair Play magazine issue 13.
Okay.
It's packed with like firsthand accounts, expert analyses, even book reviews, all focused on the JFK assassination.
That's awesome. I can't wait to hear what they've got.
I know, me too. It's like stepping back in time to see how people were investigating and thinking about the assassination back then.
Right. Before the internet and all that.
Exactly. It was a whole different world of research.
Yeah, definitely.
So we're going to kick things off with this 1996 conference held by COPA.
COPA.
Yeah, the Coalition on Political Assassination.
Oh, right. Of course.
And they were focused on not just JFK, but also RFK and MLK.
Wow. So kind of like a triple whammy of American tragedies.
Right, exactly. And what's cool is that Fair Play has these firsthand accounts from the conference, like one from a researcher named Martin Shackelford, and another one from a writer who calls himself Fatback.
Fatback. Interesting name.
I know, right? But their accounts give us a real feel for the atmosphere of the conference.
Like what it was like to be there among all those researchers.
Yeah, and it's not just about the theories they were discussing, but also the strategies they were developing for getting more information.
Oh, like government records and stuff.
Exactly, because back then it was a lot harder to get your hands on that kind of information.
Makes sense. So what kind of strategies were they talking about?
Well, Peter Dale Scott and John Judge gave presentations on how to obtain government records.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they were really focused on the work of the Assassination Records Review Board, the ARB.
Or the ARRB.
They were basically fighting tooth and nail to get access to all sorts of documents the government was keeping under wraps.
I bet, and I'm guessing a lot of those documents were related to the medical evidence.
There were a bunch of presentations challenging the single bullet theory. The idea that one bullet went through both JFK and Governor Connolly.
Oh, yeah, the Warren Commission's big claim.
Exactly. And some researchers were presenting evidence suggesting that the bullet trajectory just didn't add up.
So they're saying there had to be another shooter.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, of course, opens up the possibility of a much bigger conspiracy.
And I bet that ties into the whole drug smuggling angle.
Oh, absolutely. That was another major topic at the conference.
It seems like drugs always find their way into these conspiracy theories.
It's true. And in this case, they were talking about potential links between drug trafficking and the assassination, and not just like shady underworld figures either.
Oh, so this goes deeper.
Way deeper. Some researchers were even talking about deep politics. That was a term coined by Peter Dale Scott.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that.
Well, it basically refers to all the hidden political practices and arrangements that go on behind the scenes, the stuff that's often concealed from the public.
So we're not just talking about a lone gunman anymore.
Nope. Now we're talking about networks of power, covert operations, and motives that go way beyond the official story.
Definitely sounds like we're going down the rabbit hole.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And one of the figures who really embodies this murky world of espionage is Richard Case Nagel.
Who was he?
Well, he was an ex-CIA KGB double agent.
Whoa, double agent.
Yeah, talk about living a double life. And get this, he actually claimed to have been involved in the JFK assassination.
Wow.
I know, right? But here's the crazy part. Before the ARB could get access to his records, he died under suspicious circumstances.
Oh, come on. That's too convenient.
Right, like something out of a spy movie. It really makes you wonder what he knew and who might have wanted him silenced.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Well, I'm hooked. Let's keep going. What else do we have?
Okay, so next up, we have this author, Dick Russell, who decided to investigate Nagel's death.
Good for him. Sounds like a real truth seeker.
He was totally dedicated to uncovering the truth, and as part of his research, he attended a conference with some former Cuban intelligence officials.
Cuban intelligence now. That's interesting.
I know, right? One of them was Fabian Escalante, who had actually led Cuba's counterintelligence efforts during the Cold War.
So he must have had some incredible insights.
Oh, absolutely. He provided a whole new perspective on the Cuban side of things, their potential involvement, and what they knew about the assassination.
Man, this is getting complex.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see why people get so obsessed with this case.
Yeah, it's like peeling back layers of an onion. Every time you think you're getting closer to the truth, you find another layer underneath.
And another layer and another.
Exactly. But you know what else is cool about this fair play issue?
What's that?
Well, they also feature the work of Matthew Smith, a researcher who used computer modeling to analyze the bullet trajectory in the JFK assassination.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cutting edge for the time.
It was groundbreaking.
Right.
And his model basically recreated the entire crime scene in a virtual environment.
So he could test different scenarios and see what was possible.
Exactly. And you know what he found?
Tell me.
His model directly challenged the single bullet theory.
Really?
Yeah, he showed that the shot that hit Governor Connolly couldn't have come from where Oswald was supposedly firing.
So he's basically saying Oswald couldn't have done it.
Well, not according to his model, at least. Instead, his model suggested that the fatal headshot likely came from the grassy knoll.
Wow. So we've got first-hand accounts, expert analysis, and now computer models, though pointing towards a different story than the one we've been told.
Right. It really makes you wonder how much we still don't know about what really happened that day.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, so what else is there?
Well, another fascinating theory explored in Fair Play is the idea that Robert Kennedy was involved in Project Freedom.
Project Freedom?
Yeah, it was basically a plan to overthrow Castro in Cuba.
Wow. So RFK was trying to take down Castro.
That's what this theory claims. And according to Lamar Waldron, who presented this theory, RFK was playing a much more active role in Cuban affairs than anyone realized.
So he's saying RFK was basically running a secret war.
In a way, yeah. And that, of course, could have created a motive for JFK's assassination, either as retaliation from Castro or as a way to stop the coup from happening.
That's a pretty bold claim.
Oh, yeah, and it gets even more unsettling. Waldron also revealed that there were government contingency plans in place to handle potential retaliation if Project Freedom was ever exposed.
Okay.
And get this, those plans included the assassination of U.S. officials.
Hold on. Are you serious?
Yeah, pretty crazy, right?
That's insane. So they were basically prepared to kill their own people if things went south.
It seems that way, and it raises the disturbing question of whether those contingency plans might have been activated in a way that ultimately led to JFK's death.
Man, that's a chilling thought.
Mm-hmm.
It really makes you wonder what else they might have been capable of.
It's definitely unsettling. But, we're just getting started. We still have a lot more to uncover in this deep dive.
Great. Well, don't leave me hanging. What's next?
All right, so next we're going to dive into the story of the Paynes, the couple who befriended Lee Harvey Oswald before the assassination.
The Paynes? Okay. I'm not familiar with it.
Well, at first glance, they seem like this ordinary couple, but their connections reach into some very powerful circles.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and their involvement in the whole Minox camera charade is particularly intriguing, where a camera found among Oswald's possessions later went missing.
That's weird. Sounds like a cover-up.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And that's not all. Michael Payne's mother was close friends with the mistress of Allen Dulles, the former head of the CIA.
Wow. So they were connected to the CIA?
It seems that way.
Okay.
And then there are the family's ties to Bell Helicopter, a company heavily involved in military contracts.
Okay.
And the International Cooperative Alliance, which was linked to covert CIA operations during the Cold War.
So these seemingly ordinary people were actually entangled in this web of intelligence agencies and secret operations.
Exactly, and it makes you wonder what their role in the assassination might have been, whether they were just innocent bystanders or something more.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear more about them. Okay, so what else have you got?
All right, so next up we're heading to the ARRB's public hearing in Los Angeles, where we'll hear from some major players in the JFK investigation, like Robert Tannenbaum and even David Bellin.
Oh, wow. So we're going to hear from people who are actually involved in the official investigation.
Oh, got it. And this hearing really highlights the deep divisions and conflicting perspectives within those investigations. It wasn't just conspiracy theorists who were questioning the official narrative. Even those involved in the investigations had doubts and disagreements.
That's interesting. So what kind of things were they disagreeing about?
Well, Robert Tannenbaum was particularly vocal about the need for full transparency. He believed that the American people deserved to see all the documents, even the classified ones.
That's a pretty radical stance, especially for someone who was involved in the official investigation.
I know, right? And he even shared a shocking anecdote about a Warren Commission transcript where Texas officials claimed to have information that Oswald was a contract employee of the CIA and FBI.
Whoa, hold on. That's a bombshell. Are you serious?
Yep, that's what he said.
If that's true, it would completely blow the official narrative out of the water.
It would completely change everything.
Wow. Okay, I need to hear more about this.
Don't worry, we'll get into all the juicy details in the next part of our deep dive.
All right, well, don't leave me hanging for too long.
I won't, I promise. This story is just getting started.
I can't wait.
Me neither. Buckle up, because we're going deeper down the rabbit hole.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground so far, but there's still much more to explore.
Okay, I'm ready.
Great, well, let's pick back up with the ARRB hearing in Los Angeles.
Sounds good to me.
And after that, we'll dive into some truly fascinating topics, like a play where the audience gets to decide Oswald's fate.
Wow, that's cool.
I know, right? And a closer look at the legacy of Penn Jones Jr., the journalist who dared to challenge the Warren Commission's findings.
This deep dive is just full of surprises.
It is, and we're just getting started. So stay tuned for the next part of our journey into the mysteries of the JFK assassination.
I'm all ears. Let's do it. So, you were saying something about David Bellin?
Oh, yeah, right? Bellin. He was another former counsel for the Warren Commission, and he was there at the ARB hearing, too.
And I bet he had a different take on things than Tannenbaum.
Oh, totally. He staunchly defended the Warren Commission's findings. He was like their biggest champion.
Interesting. So, even within the official investigations, there were these starkly contrasting viewpoints.
It's true, and it just goes to show you that the JFK assassination is anything but a simple open and shut case.
Right. It's like everyone has their own interpretation of the evidence.
Exactly, and it makes you wonder how much of it comes down to personal biases.
I mean, that's always a factor, right? Especially when you're dealing with something as politically charged as this.
Totally, and Bellin even went so far as to criticize Oliver Stone's film, JFK.
Oh, yeah. That movie really stirred things up.
It did, and Bellin called it a hoax and a propaganda masterpiece. He was really upset about how it portrayed the assassination.
I can see why he'd be upset. I mean, that movie definitely presented a very different version of events than the Warren Commission report.
Right, and it really highlights the power of the media to shape public perception.
Yeah, for sure. And it makes you think about how much of what we believe about the JFK assassination has been influenced by what we've seen in movies and TV shows.
It's a good point. And it's not just about Hollywood either. Think about someone like Penn Jones Jr., the journalist, who used his newspaper to challenge the Warren Commission's findings.
Oh, yeah, we talked about him earlier. He seemed like a real crusader for truth.
He was, and his story really shows how the media can be a force for good, a platform for holding those in power accountable.
Right, so it's like a double-edged sword.
Exactly. It can be used to spread misinformation or to expose the truth.
And that makes media literacy even more crucial today, don't you think?
Totally. I mean, we're bombarded with information from all sides, so it's more important than ever to be able to critically evaluate sources and think for ourselves.
Absolutely. We can't just blindly accept everything we hear or see.
Okay, so speaking of thinking critically, let's talk about James Files, the prison inmate who confessed to being involved in the JFK assassination.
Oh, wow. I've heard about this guy. His story's pretty wild.
It is. He claimed to have been recruited by the CIA, worked with Charles Nicoletti, the mob hitman, and even participated in preparations for the Bay of Pigs invasion.
Hold on, are you serious?
Yep. And according to him, he fired the fatal shot from the grassy knoll.
That's insane.
I know, right? It's like something out of a movie.
So what do we make of his claims? Is he telling the truth or is he just a con artist?
Well, researchers have pointed out some problems and inconsistencies in his story. For example, he claimed that his case officer was David Atlee Phillips.
Who was that?
He was a high-ranking CIA officer known for his expertise in propaganda.
So not exactly the kind of guy you'd expect to be involved in a hit squad.
Exactly, and given Phillips's role and stature, it seems pretty unlikely that he would have been directly involved in an operation like this.
Right, that does sound a bit far-fetched.
And that's not the only red flag. Files also claim to have destroyed most of the documentary evidence that could support his story.
Oh, come on, that's just too convenient.
It is, isn't it? So it's really hard to know what to believe.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible that he's telling the truth, but it's also possible that he's embellishing his role or even making the whole thing up.
Exactly, and that's the challenge with historical mysteries like this. There are so many gaps in the record and conflicting accounts that it's almost impossible to separate fact from fiction.
True, but that's also what makes it so fascinating, right?
Absolutely. The JFK assassination is a puzzle that may never be fully solved, but the search for answers is what keeps us coming back for more.
I agree, and I think that's a good place to take a break for now.
Sounds good to me. Let's pick this up again in the next part of our deep dive. So where do we even go from here after all this? It's like we're in this maze of conspiracy theories and conflicting evidence.
It can definitely feel overwhelming, but I think it's important to step back and look at the bigger picture,
What do you mean?
Well, for me, one of the most fascinating aspects of this whole thing is how the JFK assassination intersects with the Cold War.
Oh, yeah, right? We've got the CIA, Cuban exiles, maybe even the Soviets lurking in the shadows.
Exactly. It's like this event wasn't just a crime. It was a pivotal moment in history. And to really understand it, we have to understand those global forces at play.
Yeah, it's like trying to understand a ripple effect. You got to go back to the source to see how those initial waves were created.
Exactly. And what's even crazier?
What's that?
The ripple effects of the assassination are still being felt today.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, it really shook people's faith in the government, and it continues to inspire all these books and movies and
It's a
documentaries.
story that just won't die.
Like a ghost that haunts the American psyche.
Exactly. And speaking of ghosts,
Oh, yeah, go on.
one of the things that really struck me from these fair play excerpts is the idea of silenced voices, you know?
Yeah, like all those people who might have known something but were either silenced or just disappeared.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder how many stories are out there that we'll never get to hear.
It's a chilling thought.
It is, but it also underscores the importance of continuing to push for transparency and accountability, you know?
Right. We may never have all the answers, but we can't just give up.
Exactly. We owe it to ourselves to keep digging and keep asking questions.
I agree. So I guess the big question for our listeners is this, after all we've uncovered in this deep dive, what do you believe? What aspects of the official narrative do you find most questionable? And what would you do to uncover the truth?
Those are great questions. And, you know, there's no easy answer.
Yeah.
It's a puzzle that we may never fully solve, but the journey of exploring it is what matters.
Well said. So on that note, we'll leave you to ponder the mysteries of the JFK assassination. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.